so like I was writing this intro for the script and I was trying to define Tekken, and the only word I could come up with was just dense. Like the game is so dense. There is so much to do. There is so much to learn. It's fucking terrifying. And it's really easy to get hung up on things that aren't going to be beneficial to you. Like for the first like 2 months, I consciously didn't give a shit about getting off the ground. Like I didn't think about it. I just held back and hoped for the best. And that was because I knew I was just going to end up in this like weird part of YouTube where I'm listening to like 7-hour long videos on like different tech options. I was like, fuck that. I need to figure out how to like low parry first, you know? And it's hard because you just don't know the order in which you're meant to learn stuff. You have to kind of figure that out. And I'm lucky because I just play fighting games, so I can kind of guess what the most important things are for me to learn. But for a new player, you just don't know where to start.
I think that, because 2D and 3D are two different disciplines to a degree, but there are obviously, of course, some overlapping skills that are present. And I'm guessing if you didn't have that prior experience in just fighting game expertise or just fighting game knowledge, Tekken would be even more unapproachable. Perhaps to the level where like, maybe I wouldn't want to play this. I mean, the point I'm getting to here is, do you think it's too dense or too convoluted, or?
So I have I have a fundamental difficulty with this because that density is actually the reason I like Tekken. So it's really hard because when I'm talking about Tekken, I want to highlight the density and the advantages and why that's so cool. But also you realize as you're saying that, you're going like, I'm making this game sound bad. Like it's really difficult because that is what appeals to me. I think Tekken above okay, we won't go down comparison routes, but it has so many avenues in which you can excel. And historically, this is something I've really appreciated in gaming. Like my two favorite games outside of fighting games are Quake and StarCraft. And these are two games where you can be good at so many different things and it can be one specific thing. There's like a player in Quake called Evil, and his whole thing is he has an amazing railgun. That's it. And he's got everything else is like pretty good. Like, it's top level, but not amazing. But his railgun basically breaks the game because he just, because you're just like, oh, I timed all the items, I should be at the lead, and he just comes in, hits you once and runs off. And you're like, what the fuck is this? And that to me was always awesome because I was like, wow, this person is a good player, but he's got a way that he's excelled above everyone else. And it's so specific, but it's because of how dense and complex the game is that was allowed to flourish. And I kind of saw that, and it's why it pushed me to start learning Tekken was, I would be watching matches and people would be like, wow, he's doing a combo and that's not a tournament combo. That's a training mode combo. Or they had like awareness of situations that just like you should not have awareness of. Like you can play for a long time, but it's so specific and they're able to capitalize on it in a way that defines them as a player. And that to me was really fascinating. So it's a really difficult double-edged sword where I would hate to say that it's too complex, but there just needs to be a bit of hand-holding. There needs to be, just having an idea of like, I should learn my like 10 to 15 frame punishes as like a starter. And that will literally get you through and like a little launch punish. And then you can kind of just play the game and figure it out from there. And when you get hit by something, you can be like, why did I get hit by that? And piece it together and just be a bit responsive to the information other players are punishing me for holding back. And I did that in response to a player, not in response to the game having it. But that's because I know to do that. And how do you teach someone that? It's a hard skill to teach.
It's I think you bring up really just one of the main appeals of Tekken, in that you're right in that there are so many ways you can excel in Tekken, and that like people talk about expression in fighting games and it's sort of a nebulous term, but really I think one of the reasons I was drawn to Tekken so much, and it's still one of my favorite fighting games, is that I feel like I can express myself because there are so many ways you can approach the game or even your character. Yeah, it probably can be. I know it can be a bit intimidating at first when you're trying to get into it. And I think the main thing that a lot of people have been saying is that instead of reducing that depth, instead of chipping away at it, because there have been patches in the past which have done that, maybe consider creating a roadmap for players. That's the classic thing with fighting games. Like, make them easier to understand, not easier to play.
Yeah, it's a hard one because we're trying to, if we get into the world of tutorials and roadmaps and stuff, tutorials are often touted as the solution to complex games.
Right.
And I am kind of the belief that that's not true because everyone fucking skips them. Let's not, like, how many people do you think have done Guilty Gear tutorials?
I actually think games need to be designed in a way that makes them clearer to understand. Like, for example, with Tekken, I think block animations, just this one element here, block animations could be a bit more visually intuitive, right? Like, let's say a character throws a jab, right? And they block it. And a character throws a down forward one and they block it. Well, visually that looks the same, except the jab is plus on block, and the down forward one is obviously a bit minus on block. But a new player wouldn't know the difference at all, and the game doesn't indicate that. But maybe if the opponent reeled a bit when they jab, like to show that they're in a negative situation, that would, it would intuitively teach you what the game is about. And hey, no tutorial necessary.
Exactly. I think this is one of the things that Guilty Gear has historically done very well.
Yeah.
Is that its visual language is so clear. It's got like, you can see the difference between a blue RC and a red RC. They're different fucking colors. You get it. You know what I mean? Like it's, the dust, it's got a big spark to it. There is really obvious visual language here. And Tekken at times can lack it for sure.
Yeah.
Because you just sometimes don't know. Like, I was lucky going into Tekken that I knew that, your jab is going to be plus. Like, I know that information. And the amount of times where I've been playing, when I just started, and I'd be playing and I would just go, wait a second, this guy's really bad. And then just hit jab over and over.
That is one of the best ways. Jabs are one of the best barometers to gauge what kind of opponent you're up against. Just go up to them and just jab, 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 jab. See how they react. Even at high level, like, oh, is this player patient? Is this player just going to sit there? Are they going to try and sidestep? Are they going to do some crazy, is this going to goat them into doing some kind of crazy stance-based kind of bullshit? It'll tell you so much about your opponent without you putting too much out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a immediate knowledge check for beginners. For anyone that's played for more than a month, they'll know it. But like, if you just that day played, you have to pass that knowledge check to even participate versus someone that knows a little bit. And there's also just like simple things which, like, just tell me I punish someone would be nice, if I'm honest. Just say punish. It's a real simple change, but it's the amount of times I'm like, did I just punish him or were they mashing? Like, I actually don't know until I train this.
That too. Like, there are some moves which, like, if you block them, you might actually think they're plus, but they're actually punishable. The classic example of this are moves like Heihachi's forward 2 or Paul's death fist. If you shove that move to a player and you block it, they think, oh gosh, like, powerful punch. He's reeling back. Like, Paul must be, at an advantage here. This move is broken. Does so much damage. Even on block, you have an advantage. It's punishable on block. That's the whole point. But that's a way in which Tekken's visual language actually contradicts the game design. It contradicts how you play it. What would Tekken lose if you blocked Paul's death fist? He kind of hunched over a bit to clearly tell you, hey, you can punish this guy now.
It's becoming more and more mainstay in every fighting game. Like, you know, Street Fighter now has got moves like, you know, a sweep, which they'll recoil backwards once it's blocked. You know, it's very obvious it's punishable. It's a simple change that doesn't affect the flow of the game or anything like that, and still functions really highly. Now, and the good thing here is that Tekken is so deep that by adding these sorts of visual cues, it doesn't actually take anything away, because there are going to be so many situations which you can't rely on visual cues, or you need to like know knowledge, you need to be prepared for it, because some things are just like a little bit minus, but you need to know how to take your turn back. It's not just simply, oh, I press a button now. I think when Tekken players kind of say, oh, we don't really need that, you know, knowledge checks part of the game, which I do massively agree with, I think they're kind of underselling the game in that the knowledge checks are way more complex than just, is it plus or is it minus? They're actually, because it could be like minus, but still a really shit situation for you, and you just haven't realized that.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's interesting because like being +1 in Tekken is a completely different story from being +1 in Street Fighter. Like +1 in Tekken isn't really that meaningful because like you're always a sidestep away from just, you know, if they try to press that advantage, you can sidestep and launch them. It's only like at +5 or 6 where advantage really becomes something meaningful that you can capitalize on. And there are like having a true 50-50 mix-up situation in Tekken is incredibly rare. There are always other options, whether it's a sidestep or a backdash or a parry or, you know, whatever. One that just comes to mind right now is, I think if Steve hits you with his back 1-2, you're going to this like ballerina spin, and he's left at like plus. A lot of these ballerina spin states, that was introduced in Tekken 7, and that is a direct consequence of why Tekken 7 is more overtly mix-up-y, because there are now more true kind of 50-50 mix-up situations. But there, like, Steve can either go for a mid and potentially launch you, or he can go for a low, his little low peekaboo low jab, and you can't even low parry that because you're at such disadvantage. You either have to, you can't sidestep, you can't parry, it's either block low or block mid, and that's one of the few true like 50-50 situations in the game. But yeah, you generally have so many options in any given situation in Tekken that yeah, it's not like the knowledge checks are late. There's a lot to any given situation.
Yeah, they're really infinite, you know, and that's so cool to me. It's awesome that you can define yourself as someone that has a creative response to knowledge checks and is prepared for them. Because the mental stack in Tekken, I think, was one of the most intimidating things that coming into it for me was there's just a lot to be prepared for in any given situation. And you know, when you talk to Tekken players, they'll tell you about like the rules. You know, there are rules and there are guidelines to certain sort of situations, so you can group them together to get a general understanding of how they function, right? Like you were saying with a +1 situation, you know, you've got advantage, but there are actually lots of options to it. But if you don't know those rules, and you can't really expect a new player to know those rules, there is just so much to take in. But it is cool to see that players can be just that person that knows all those rules, that knows all those situations, that knows how to get out of them and interact with them and can react to them so quickly.
Hey, thank you for watching, and a massive shout out to our patrons. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe really help the channel out. Cheers all, and have a good day.